Hey there! Before we jump into this month's session of IT Office Hours with Andromeda Technology Solutions, I just wanted to let you in on some details for next month's session. We're going to be holding that on Wednesday, October 23rd at noon. So the topic next month is going to be Office 365. I'm going to dig into some of the benefits that your business gets from migrating to the cloud and using those applications in that set. Then we're going to talk about some of the different applications that are actually available to you in Office 365 depending on which package that fits your business model. And then finally, I'm going to do my best to talk to our team here and find some nifty tips and tricks so that if you were to use Office 365 or if you're already using the platform, you can enhance your experience. So again, that's Wednesday, October 23rd at noon. I look forward to seeing you there. You can find the registration link right below this video. And without further ado, here's the session.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for taking some time today to join us for IT Office Hours with Andromeda Technology Solutions. Again, this topic for today is going to be your data, your backups, and your business continuity. So that's what we're going to cover today. So to kick things off real quick, I guess I'll just ask a question to the crowd, and it's going to kind of, prelude to some of the things we'll talk about. But my question for you is going to be, hopefully we're doing data backups right now and we've got a disaster recovery plan in place. When did you perform your last test to verify that your backups were running properly, that the data was solid, it wasn't corrupted, and just kind of did a test to see how long it would take you to restore from backup? That's going to be kind of our kickoff question. So throw your answer into the channel. When was the last time you tested your backups? And I'd love to see some of those responses, but I will kick this off so that we can keep things on time. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time this month, I want to just kind of answer the question, what is IT Office Hours? What is this about? So here at Andromeda, we're very committed to educating, getting back to the community of, our clients, the network of just businesses in the Chicagoland area. There are a lot of topics related to cybersecurity and technology at the business level that we really felt we could get in and just discuss at a very high level, quick 15-minute presentations once a month. Our topics are going to cover scams hitting businesses like yours and what you can do to prevent them or protect yourself, some tips and tricks with popular software solutions, solutions available to help you protect your business, and then anything related to compliance that we can kind of assist with. So to kick this off, I want to first start talking about, because today we're going to talk about a couple different things. We're going to talk about disaster recovery, what that is, what it means, what's a disaster recovery plan versus the solution that you install or implement, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about business continuity. So disaster recovery can show up in many different ways for your business, and I just want to make sure that it's understood that for the context of our discussion, we're talking about disaster recovery specifically within the context of the IT solutions at your office. So your servers, if there was ever a cybersecurity incident, those types of things. And there are obviously other ways that you can consider and apply disaster recovery, but for our context and our conversation today, let's keep the focus with technology. So first, disaster recovery is about more than cybersecurity. So I work for an IT company, so a lot of our time and effort right now is focused on the topic of cybersecurity. How do we make sure our clients are secure? How do we make sure that we can get things back up and running in the event of an accident or an incident? But one of the things that I think is very important is that we really start communicating about the fact that disaster recovery is really meant to protect your business from a variety of different incidents and situations. So I'm going to kind of run through a few of these and give you examples. So for instance, disaster recovery is about more than cybersecurity. It can also impact and influence your response to an incident such as a hardware failure. So for example, a server crash that was unexpected, since those are never planned. But a server failure, a laptop doesn't work anymore, a hard drive went bad, those types of situations where you've got a piece of equipment that you were depending on for your business that is now down and unusable. So what are we going to do in that event? There's also cybersecurity. That's something, like I said, we talk about a lot. The primary focus there is going to be malware and ransomware. If your network were infected across the board, if every workstation was infected with ransomware when you came in on a Tuesday morning, what are we going to do? How are we going to recover from this? And how are we going to get the business back up and running? And then also, how are we going to keep the business running while we're recovering? Another example is going to be physical or natural disaster. These things happen. We can talk about floods, fire, tornadoes, Or for instance, I mean, you have a pipe burst and that ends up flooding your server room. Disaster recovery is going to help you prepare for that and also, make it through that situation. The last two are going to be related to employee and staff for the most part. But I mean, disaster recovery and data backups also help when your employees make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We're all human. You accidentally delete a file, your computer loses battery in the middle of while you're working on a presentation. Any number of things can happen, and having a good data backup and disaster recovery plan is going to help your staff recover that data if they ever accidentally deleted it. And then, there's accidents, and then there's, intentional malicious activity. So you've got an upset employee who takes it out on the hard drives at the office. They could steal, stealing equipment, compromising equipment, damaging equipment. All of those things happen, and, we don't want to think about them, but disaster recovery and a data backup solution is going to be able to really help you handle that in the event. So I alluded to this earlier, but the one thing I want to say above all else, and I mean, this happens. So, our sales guys are in the field, our account managers are in the field, our techs see this happen. No matter what, if there's one thing that you can take from this presentation, I really want to urge you to make sure that you are regularly checking in and testing your backups. And this is important because what we've learned over time is that most businesses are performing some kind of backup. If we go in and we're talking with a new business owner or manager and we say, what are you doing right now for your backup solutions? Most often we get an answer, well, we're taking care of it, but we don't get a lot of very technical response. So what I'm asking is, how often are you going to your IT vendor or your IT staff and saying, when is the last time that you tested our backups? Can I have proof of that? And are you confident that they are secure? I get off my soapbox. But so what should I look for in a disaster recovery solution, right? So like I was saying, there's disaster recovery and data backups. So data backups is the activity of backing up the data. But a disaster recovery solution is going to do a whole lot more for you than just back up your data. It's really going to be a tool that's going to help you, again, recover in the event of a disaster. So what should you be looking for? Number one, does your backup solution provide multiple backup options? So this is going to be important because depending on the environment that you have at your business, you may have certain elements of your network, certain data points on premises, on an on-prem server. You may have certain elements of your environment in your business in the cloud. Most often we see a variety of both. And so what you want to make sure is that whatever solution that you're using has the ability to support your business, support those backup functions, support that recovery, with respect to on-premises solutions and maybe cloud-based solutions. The other important thing is to make sure that if there are multiple options for you with respect to your data recovery solution, some solutions offer the ability to have backups on site that are then also copied to the cloud. So there's many different options, and you just want to know you want to have a definitive understanding of how it works and where your data is stored. Second, can you virtualize your backups in an emergency? And what I mean by virtualize, so this also kind of builds on this whole idea of the difference between just a backup and a disaster recovery solution. So for instance, let's walk that example out where you come in the morning and the servers have crashed. So if, let's say, you had a server failure, and your backup solution as it stands right now was just, a backup on a hard drive or a disk of some type. The question is, what are you going to do with that data? You have it, which is fantastic, but what are you going to do with it? You need a device to help spin that up, so to speak, and make it usable for your team. So what we call that is virtualizing. So our disaster recovery solutions come with that capability built in, so that if there was a failure, if there was an event, we could simply virtualize your server either in the cloud or on an on-prem solution. And then while we were doing that back-end work to get either the server replaced or to figure out what happened, while we were doing that back-end work to help get you up and running, you would still be able to run your business, and that's very important. The third question is going to be, are your backups encrypted? So this is very important for many of the industries that we service, including medical, legal, financial, where there's a lot of compliance standards and expectations. So whatever you're doing to back up your data, you definitely want to make sure that it's encrypted, because if it gets into the hands of the wrong individuals, they would be able to access it and read it. And by encrypting it, we make sure that's not possible. So fourth, we've got, how often is your solution backing up your environment? And so what I mean by that, that's different than saying how often are we testing it. What I'm asking here is, how often are we taking snapshots or making copies of the data that we need to back up? For some businesses, that's once an hour, so sometimes it could be once a day. Our solution, I believe it can default to every 15 minutes. So that's something that you want to think about. How often do we want to be taking copies of our data? And then if you are offloading your data to the cloud, how often are we going to send that information, since that can sometimes have an impact on the bandwidth of your network. So the final question I'm going to throw out here, and this is not exhaustive by any means, these are just the ones that I think are the most important at a high level, but the final one is going to be, what applications and data sets need to be backed up? So again, we've talked about sometimes you may have an EMR solution in the cloud that doesn't necessarily need a backup, but you also may have, let's say, Office 365 or a cloud-based email solution, and oftentimes businesses assume that when they have those cloud-based solutions, they are being backed up, when in reality, these companies, and like I said, Office 365, G Suite, what they do is they use what's called a shared responsibility model. And what that means is that they're responsible for the stability and the security of the network and of the cloud infrastructure that you are using. So it's their responsibility to make sure that it's secure and it's always available. Uptime is important, but it's your responsibility to make sure that your data is good. So if you were to accidentally, let's say, delete a file or delete an email, Microsoft and Google aren't going to be getting on the phone to help you recover that, right? You need to cover your disaster recovery and your data backups for those cloud solutions. And there are definitely things available to you. So next, and this is kind of the final portion of this presentation today, but there's a few different terms that get passed around, and really there's three. So it's data backups, as I've mentioned, disaster recovery, and business continuity. So your backups are just the physical or in the cloud. It's the thing, it's the copy of the data. That's a backup. Disaster recovery is going to be what we are going to do in the event of an incident. What actions are we going to take to get you from, let's say, non-functioning to functioning? What are we going to do when the server crashes? What's the plan? How long does it take us to get the equipment? How long does it take us to get approval on whatever quoting we need to get done? How long is it going to take us to install? And that all takes time, right? And no matter what the incident is that you're going to be getting through, whether it's hardware failure, cybersecurity, an employee accident or wrongdoing, all of these things are going to take time to resolve. And that's where business continuity comes in, because your business continuity is going to be the plans that you have in place so that you can keep running the business, you can keep seeing your patients, you can keep seeing your customers and clients, but you can keep doing business. You can keep things running while that recovery is taking place. And that's what business continuity is about. So they're connected topics, but slightly different. So when it comes to business continuity, you really want to be asking yourself a few different questions. You're going to be asking, what steps will the team take for different incidents? And that's a little bit vague, but I think it applies both internally and externally. So you want to know, okay, what is my vendor doing in the event of this type of incident taking place? And then separately, what does my staff need to do? Okay, so if there was a ransomware incident and an employee of yours saw an alert on their screen that said, you've been infected with ransomware, what are they supposed to do? Do they contact you? Do they contact IT? Do they unplug their device? These are all questions that we want to think about, because unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but really it's a matter of when and not if an incident of some type is going to happen. So our best defense is to prepare. Second, we're going to say, what is your RPO, or recovery point objective? And really what that means is you're making a decision on the business level, and you're communicating to your vendors of how much data are we willing to lose, or can we afford to lose in the event of an incident? And again, that could be 15 minutes, it could be an hour, it could be a day. And that's really going to impact how often you're doing your backups, because that's kind of how you resolve that issue. The third question is going to be, what is your RTO? And that's your recovery time objective. So that's similar, but it's about time. So that's going to be having those discussions with your vendors about, okay, this is how long we can afford to be down. Let's figure out how we can resolve something and have us back up and running in 4 hours. And then, on your end, it's, what do I do with my staff to keep things going during those 4 hours while my vendor gets me back up and running? And then, again, and it's kind of a similar thing, but what are the service level agreements that you have with your vendors? Every vendor that you use, you should have some type of a response, in writing. Well, what are the SLAs? If I have a critical issue, how long is it going to take for you to be touching it and looking at it? And then how long do you promise that it'll take, or how long are you willing to allow before it's resolved. And then that's for any number of vendors. It can be for your IT vendor, it could be for a lab at your office, it could be for a printing partner. You know, at the end of the day, whenever anything isn't working or there is an incident, you definitely want to have it in writing, how quickly they're going to respond, and then how quickly they can resolve. So a lot of information there, a lot of different questions, but I mean, a lot of different questions I'm asking you to ask your vendors. But at that point, I mean, what questions do you guys have for me? So I see here, if I wanted to look into my disaster recovery solution and plan, how would I do that? Okay, so like I said, I mean, there's a lot of different questions, there's a lot of different things that you need to look at, and to be honest, I would say, number one, you want to work with a professional team, you know, that specializes in disaster recovery, that understands the different solutions, and hopefully also understands your market, because like we talked about, different industries have different requirements, they have different objectives and needs. So for instance, again, at a medical facility, you know, we've still got patients coming in the door, right? So if we had an incident, what are we supposed to do? Are we going to discontinue seeing patients? Do we need to have forms printed out? Those types of things. And I think that if you talk with somebody, number one, that you trust, and also an expert in the area, they're going to be able to understand your business and how disaster recovery is going to really fit into that. So honestly, I would say give us a call or call whomever is your current IT vendor and just say, you know, I really want to sit down and have a conversation about what would happen if ransomware hit my office and how we could recover, or what we would do in the event of a server failure. And I would also recommend that you get that stuff in writing. I would create a playbook. So it would be disaster recovery playbook with a couple of different scenarios that you would either just share with management or potentially the entire staff, because really it's about when something happens, responding quickly and getting it into the right hands. Okay, I am not seeing anything else come through, so I'm going to assume that we've kind of covered the topic, or everyone just doesn't even know what to say, which makes sense. So if you need anything at all, or if you have any questions about this, if this brings up anything that you want to talk to an account manager here about, you can feel free to send me an email or give us a call at the office. My email address is abil@wenetwork.com, or give us a phone call at the office, 815-836-0030, and then I will be sending out and distributing the recording of this to all attendees and all of our existing clients. So if you want to share this with anybody else at your organization, feel absolutely free. And I look forward to seeing you guys next month. Quick preview, we're going to be diving into some of like the tips and tricks and best uses for Office 365. I'm really excited to share some of that with you and prepare for it because I get to learn some more. And if you need anything or want to discuss anything, feel free to reach me. Bye-bye.
Thanks again for stopping by and watching our recording of this month's IT Office Hours. I hope you got some valuable information about your data, your backups, business continuity. Again, I encourage you to reach out to our team with any questions you may have. We're always here to help, and this is what we specialize in. But I did want to just one last time give a quick shout out before next month. That's going to be on Wednesday, October 23rd. We're going to be covering Office 365, some of the benefits, the applications that are available to you, tips and tricks. You won't want to miss it. Get it on your calendar now. You can click below to get that registration handled, and I look forward to seeing you there.